This is not a story I would have ever predicted having to report on. Like, listen, my bingo card for 2026 did not have this one. But Candace Owens, the most notorious right-wing grifter on the internet, who is seeming to get a lot more positive coverage by progressives and the left for her call-outs of Erica Kirk and her, not believing the narrative on Charlie Kirk's assassination. She's very much still a grifter. She's very much still audience captured and just trying to get a quick paycheck. But for some reason, people have decided to just forget her history and believe that she's actually trying to turn over some non-existent new leaf. And somehow this has culminated in Candace Owens becoming friends with, of all people, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, who I'm pretty sure she is accused of being a pedophile before. Might be mistaken, but I think during the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing, Candace Owens was one of the loudest and proudest people claiming that he was like a secret pedophile who had CP on his secret laptop or whatever. So it's really weird that now Hunter Biden and Candace Owens are friends. She was at least calling him a crackhead, I know that for sure. So let's find out what this is all about, because she just uploaded a new video like 3 hours ago, so this is fresh off the presses, doing an interview with Hunter Biden. I genuinely don't know what to say. I do not know what to say about this, so let's just get right into it, shall we?
Hunter Biden, welcome to the Candace Owens Show.
It's wonderful to be
People
here.
are just going to be like, how on earth did this happen?
I know.
I got to give them a bit of a backstory. So I went to dinner with a fellow podcaster, and we were just talking about interviews, because we don't do too many interviews on the show. And he first asked me what was the best interview I ever did. And I said, without question, the USS Liberty survivor, Phil Turney. And then he said, what would be your top interview that you'd want to do? And I said, oh gosh, we're in such a different time now. Like, I'm just not interested in politics. Like, it would have to be something so different. And then I said, actually, Hunter Biden.
She's not interested in politics anymore? What? What is even her grift anymore? Is it just Charlie Kirk stuff now?
I said to him, I watched your sit down with Andrew Callahan.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the most refreshing interview that I had seen in politics in a very long time, because we're so used to being gaslit about various things.
Dude, Andrew Callahan getting away with rape, crazy, bro. That is one of the craziest career recoveries ever, dog. Like, I know people who have stories about Andrew Callahan that never went public with them. There were a lot of allegations that went public, but I know people who have allegations that they kept private. That's why I'm quite certain that those allegations about Andrew Callahan were true.
Happening, everyone's trying to hide stuff. And we read a lot about you. I guess we didn't really hear anything from you. So this was kind of the first time that I heard you in your own words, just totally owning your addiction issues, also going after Jake Tapper and George Clooney. And when we were kind of expecting the typical Democrat, like, these are great guys, these guys are amazing, Jake Tapper should, win a Pulitzer, I don't know. And I would just, it wasn't what I was expecting, is what I would say. So, and then that person just sort of made this happen.
Yeah.
So I want to just sort of get into the Hunter Biden story. I will say to the audience right now, I have already made the pledge right when I got on the phone with you that, like, obviously I'm not going to make you say anything bad about your father, because that would just be completely demonic to be like, say something terrible about your father. Everyone knows my opinions, my political perspectives. They're already out there. He is your dad. So that is separate from my viewpoints.
Because there's no way I possibly could.
Yeah, of course. I totally get that. But there's a lot to be said about you, and a lot that I guess hasn't been said about your journey. And I guess I want to start with just one question for the culture. The cocaine that was found at the White House, was it yours?
No, not only was it not mine. No, number one is thank you for having me here. And one of the reasons is to be able to answer these questions. The one thing I am, after 6 years of this, I've been sober since June 1st of 2019, clean and sober. Verifiably so, by the way, and verifiably so by the Bureau of Probation, in which I was drug tested randomly for over the course of 2 years while I went through my...
Yeah, no, they're pretty serious about that. If he was on probation getting drug tested every, 2 weeks at the most, the least often they'll do it is, once every 2 weeks. If he was getting drug tested on probation, because he, drug charges, and they do that if you're on probation for anything, I think. Yeah, he was not, sneaking in some crack and getting away with it, I promise you.
My trials and things like that. But beyond that is that, directly to your question, I wasn't even there. Not only there, but people have to understand is where that cocaine was found was, the visitor's entrance underneath that is where visitors come in and they come over from the old executive office building staff to go to the Oval or go to the chief of staff's office or to the offices in the West Wing. And it was found in a cubby in right outside of the Situation Room.
Mhm.
And it's like no possibility, not even remotely, beyond the fact that I wasn't even there. I
Right.
mean, I spent probably, over the course of 4 years, maybe, uh, 25.
I'm not gonna lie. This is actually pretty good for the Democrats, I think. I'm low-key kind of like locked in on his story. Like he's a pretty decent storyteller, and he's talking about like behind the scenes of the White House and like some like yeah, obviously Candace Owens is actually a really good interviewer, so she's acting like, was the cocaine at the White House yours? And he's like, no, it wasn't mine. But I'll tell you this: the cocaine was found exactly here. And so we can speculate a bit on whose cocaine it was. You know, like this is actually good podcast content that a prominent, not necessarily Democrat, but like Democrat associate, you know what I mean? Like the son of the last Democrat president of America. Like, you know, like this is I do think this is actually the kind of thing that the Democratic Party needs to like do. You know, we need prominent figures around the Democrats to be appearing on podcasts and just being charismatic. That's so much of how Joe Rogan propagandized for Trump, bringing people in who supported Trump and pandered to Trump and just allowed them to be to be charismatic on his show with no pushback, uncontested.
Days at the White House, like 25 nights, 30, if I, am being fair. And so it's just, it was an easy, I'm an easy target, and understandably so.
Right.
I mean, I've been, I think, probably the most famous addict and famous person, through the grace of God, in recovery for 7 years, but we're close to 7 years, June 1st. So,
Yeah, I definitely thought you were on drugs while your
Yeah.
father was in the White House. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it might have just also been the timing of the laptop coming out and then people just assuming that you were still on drugs. I don't know, but that might have been why.
I mean, come on, Candace. You and all these conservative pundits were trying to convince America that he was on drugs while Biden was president. And that even if he was, that would somehow reflect on Biden as if he can control his 40, 50 something, I'm guessing 50 something year old son's actions. Like, come on.
In our heads we
no,
thought that.
I think that it was that they purposely conflated. I wrote a book which came out in April of 2021, in which I did something that very few people I think ever in that are kind of like similarly situated to me do, in which I was 100% frank about the fact that not only was I an addict, not only was I alcoholic. I don't really see the distinction between the two when they're both drugs, but I was a crack addict. Like I was a degenerate crack addict. I mean, I've heard you call me a crackhead many times, and the truth of the matter is, I was a crackhead.
Yeah.
And I say that not to shock people because it's real.
This is I don't know, guys. I think this is good. I know Candace Owens is still a grifter, but the fact that this is happening, I think is really good because Hunter Biden's the kind of person who the Republican, like conservative establishment spent so much time demonizing. And now you have someone like Candace Owens with a massive conservative audience seeing Hunter Biden be actually a pretty chill, open, like humble, charismatic guy. Like this is actually like huge in his favor. Like I've never seen someone sound so charismatic about having been a crackhead. You know what I mean?
Really shocking. Crack cocaine carries such a stigma to it to begin with. But I say it because I think that there are so many people. I know there are so many people. I think that there's, at any given time, 30 million Americans that are either in active addiction or in recovery. There's not a single person that I know that hasn't been impacted by addiction at some level, in some form, personally, or with someone that is 1 degree of separation from that they love. No one that I know.
Least of all me.
Yeah, and part of that, one of the reasons I'm here, the stories that you tell about that in terms of
My family.
your family, and there is where the common ground is for me. I can 100% say this is that a friend of mine gave me this quote about 2 years ago, and it's become my mantra. It's Mother Teresa. It was attributed to Mother Teresa. Is if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. That's my everything now.
I'm not gonna lie. Compared to past Hunter Biden, he's definitely gotten a lot lamer. he's a lot less fun now. You know, he's clean and everything, but that's for the best for him. And this is definitely the kind of image that looks really good when you're trying to change a conservative audience's mind about you, but it's not just that he's like pandering to conservatives or whatever. It's that conservatives have spent so much time hearing from right-wing pundits how bad this guy is, then they're exposed to him and they're like, oh, he's actually kind of chill. That kind of shakes their resolve in believing the character assessments that they hear from these popular conservative pundits. This hurts the credibility of all the people who spent years slandering him.
And part of that is not just the family that you have by blood and birth, but also the community that you're inextricably tied to. And that community for me is the recovery community, and it's people that are still sick and suffering from addiction. And so the biggest reason that I wanted to come talk to you, beyond the fact, and this is not me blowing smoke, I think that regardless of whether I agree with you, that you're probably the most effective communicator I've ever heard
Thank you.
behind a microphone. And it's really
Sadly true.
crazy at times. It really, really, really made me mad. Yeah. But is it? I wanted to talk to you about those things and anything else you want to talk about.
Yeah,
You know?
I'm most interested in the addiction story, and
Yeah.
I was saying to you before we started rolling that this was sort of something that I noticed when I would cover various topics, whether it was pornography, drugs on my
Yeah.
show, drinking, how many men would write and say they were suffering with various things, and yet they don't often speak about like how they're quietly suffering, whether it's with addiction to pornography, addiction to drugs, and I don't think.
Dude, so many like hurt, struggling men out there just want like a feminine figure to tell them that they're okay and it's not their fault. And Candace Owens is so good at being that figure. It's no wonder that so many like young and old men are such big fans of her content. You know, like they just like so many guys just love to hear it's not their fault from a feminine figure.
There are enough conversations about it. And so when I watched that interview of you just laying it out there, something that most people try to hide or they're shameful of, I was like, there actually just needs to be more dialogue about it. I grew up with tons of addicts in my family. I have people in my family who are still addicted. And I think there is a natural anger that people have when they, for some reason, believe, and I think this was part of the anger that that I had it toward you before I heard you speak about your addiction, is that you sort of think when somebody has money and political connections, that somehow removes them from going through these sorts of barriers in life. So when I grew up, it's like, okay, like you have uncles, whatever, that are addicted to crack, you have cousins that are doing crack, whatever it is, or experimenting with meth and drugs and those things. And then you see someone that has a life of privilege, and for some reason in your mind, you wrongly go, okay, that can't happen. And it did happen. And I'd like to hear like how you got addicted. Like what was actually the story, your path toward addiction?
Yeah. So thank you for letting me talk about that or asking me about it. And I really mean it. It's one of the things that traps people. I can only speak about myself, but I think that people that are in that are addicts or that are in recovery, also you find out really fast is that you're not as terminally unique as you think you are. Is that and one of the things that that is really important about addicts talking to each other and talking about it is that realization. Because one of the things that traps you in your addiction is shame.
Mm. And
you like me are Catholic, and we have learned that guilt is an appropriate emotion. Guilt is an appropriate response to something when you've done something wrong, and you're supposed to atone for it, and you're supposed to seek forgiveness, whether the forgiveness comes from an individual or not. That is the
Dude, I love how this really does kind of throw a wrench in the mechanism of propaganda around Biden and his family. Like, Biden's always been Catholic. His family's Catholic. Like, so many of these conservative grifters love to LARP as Catholics, too, despite what fundamentally sets Catholicism apart from most other forms of Christianity is a belief that the Pope is the sort of like speaker of God and God's will, and that the the church, the Catholic Church, is to be followed. So many of these Catholics claiming the Catholic Church is gay and woke now. It's like, how do you call yourself Catholic if you don't align with the Catholic Church anymore? Like, that's kind of the whole thing. I really do, though, think that this is effective at convincing people, like, maybe we've been lied to about these people. Maybe the people who lied to us aren't worth listening to.
that's the lesson, is that it is in only through seeking that forgiveness can you release yourself from that guilt. That's appropriate. Shame is not. Shame is just absolutely corrosive. Shame is you telling yourself that you're not worthy, that you're never going to be worthy, that the things that you've done you can never be redeemed from. And I've done horrible things in my addiction in terms of what I did, in terms of my relationships. And
Zan, the average conservative is nowhere near smart enough to change their mind about someone already demonized as much as Hunter Biden. Do you want to bet on it? Like, let's read the comments, actually. I'm curious. I actually want to know. Like, what are the comments like? Best remark from Hunter: if anything ever happened to me, I want you as a friend. Smile. Respect to Candace for not bringing his father in on this. Not a Daily Wire move at all. Um, Former addict, he is hitting the nail on the head with addiction. Lord, thank you for deliverance. Politics to the side, humanity at the forefront. Excellent interview. Thank you. This is how our country should be. Even if we don't agree, we can still be civil. Why does this interview warm my heart? Is there actually hope? Thank you for humanizing drug addicts and giving them a chance to tell their story. Your show has always been real. This episode is truth for me. 3 years and 4 days of clean and sober today. Thank you, God. I am a recovering drug addict. I can 100% relate with how he is describing this. I am a 7 years clean off meth and heroin. Wow. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like the comments are pretty fucking positive. You know, I don't know. This is Candace Owens' comment section. Those are all the top comments. Like, I think it worked. I think people are having the exact reaction that you expect from this, or not that you, but that I expect to this.
And decisions that I made, and more than anything, is just removing myself from being present for the people that love me. And what happened to me, and I really mean this, is that the exposure, not piecemeal, but the total exposure, my entire digital footprint stolen from me, a 20-year digital footprint, every text message, every picture, all of the things that that you would be ashamed of, became front page news for 4 years, for 5 years, beginning in 2019, and it forced me into a choice, and the choice was: do I get out of bed and live, or do I die? And it became that much of a dichotomy, and I chose to live. And it wasn't easy, and maintaining
Base.
sobriety in that kind of like a pressure cooker
Mm-hmm.
is often the thing that triggers you. But something broke in me in a good way, which was that I no longer have any fear. I like, sitting down with you is, to me, an opportunity for you to see me as a human being and not, Hunter Biden laptop
Yeah.
and the pictures that, Congressman Green, put up in Congress, or the New York Post. I think I was on the cover of the New York Post in 1 year more than anybody in the history.
He doesn't just want to be known as the guy who smokes crack, fucks hookers, and has a giant cock, okay? There's an actual person attached to that giant cock.
The paper, and none of it was good. None of it was good. And but what it's given me is the opportunity to own it all. Is to own all of my story without shame or fear. Realizing that I have a community of people out there that I want.
Wait, did he actually do that? Did he call Marjorie Taylor Greene congressman? That's really funny.
I want to be of service to. I really mean that, and so part of it is by me being able to be honest about it. We were just talking before we started this. Is the hardest thing for any addict to do is not only get honest with the people that they love, but to get honest with themselves.
Mm.
And until they can really see themselves for who they are, all of it, and decide to love themselves, then the cycle is just going to continue. It's just, at least in my experience, that's the truth.
I think
Yeah, like there's a ridiculous amount of like addict excusing done on the left. If I'm being honest, like just a lot of like dismissive rhetoric around addicts and like the responsibility there. But at the end of the day, like there is some culpability that needs to be had, because a lot of people who suffer from severe addiction, the nature of addiction will lead them to do things that will inevitably hurt the people in their lives. The addiction makes them do the bad things, and those bad things will still happen regardless of what's causing it. Not trying to make excuses for them, but we do have to acknowledge that like it's not their fault necessarily, but they do have to take accountability. And most ex-drug addicts will say this. Most ex-drug addicts will say, like, yeah, like it is the prerogative of the addict to take accountability and make an effort to get better, because that's the only person that really can do it, but yeah, obviously, support, rehab, those things matter, but I do think the left is a bit too dismissive of the danger that addicts in your life can cause.
One of the things.
Did I even answer your question?
Yeah, well, I want to talk about the first time that you got introduced to it because that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh,
And
I know. I went into all the good
yeah,
stuff.
actually,
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
start with that. Like, how did
Yeah.
you actually get
So,
introduced?
okay.
First off, describe for
Yeah.
people who don't know
Yeah.
the difference between cocaine and crack, because
Yeah.
crack is
Yeah.
a lot more addictive.
Yeah.
And so, just what is the difference
I know I
between?
got a lot of heat for.
No, it was
Yeah.
fantastic. It was fantastic. I was like, well, he's
Yeah.
actually very educated
Yeah.
on this. And
Well, it's important to me to make the distinction that there's this idea.
I'm curious about this because my understanding is that like cocaine is like a very like pure form of like the cocaine substance that they derive from the plant, and that crack is when you take cocaine and you like add some kind of base to it, I guess, that allows for it to be like melted into a goo and then solidified and then broken up, and like a smaller amount of cocaine powder can be essentially turned into this like like a lot more of this crystalline material that can be sold for cheaper but also spread out like that's how I thought crack worked as opposed to cocaine. It's like basically just coke but stretched out to last longer. But I don't know, we're about to hear from an expert what it actually is.
Yeah, that there's this kind of a secret kind of special enhancement to powder cocaine that makes it into crack, and you have to have some technical degree in order to be able to do that. And let's start all the way at the beginning. I think that I'm genetically predisposed to being an alcoholic. I do believe that there is a genetic piece of it. I do believe that my brain works differently as an addict in terms of the way in which my synapses fire once they're introduced.
I think the science backs this up with a lot of different things. I don't know if we have a lot of science that backs up addiction being a genetic predisposition when it comes to substances necessarily, but we know that it is when it comes to things such as eating. Like eating related things, like we very much know it's not so much that it like runs in your family, but you can absolutely be born with weird anomalies in the way that your brain functions that makes you, for example, not feel hungry as often as you're supposed to. It can lead to you being underweight or feeling more hungry more often than you're supposed to, leading to being overweight. This can even lead to food addiction for some people, depending on how their brain is wired. So I do think that we actually have enough evidence in other realms to suggest that there is an actual like programming of the brain, maybe not nature, but it could be nature or nurture like thing behind a predisposition to addiction. Because like in my case, like take for example gambling addiction, I'm pretty much immune to it. I've been to casinos multiple times, and every time when I have like an allocated like budget of money for gambling, I feel like leaving before I've even gone through it. Like the hype of like, it's a casino, look at all the machines, wow, like wears off after like 10 minutes and I just want to go home. Like I know the odds of actually winning any money. They're zero. Yeah, I'm not going to win. The actual odds are zero. So like I just don't have any like I just don't feel the urge to gamble even after I've like done it for a little bit. It just doesn't work on me. Like I don't have the brain chemistry to even enjoy gambling, much less be addicted to it.
Due to the dopamine hit and the serotonin increase that occurs because of an introduction of a substance. I believe that I became acclimated and physiologically dependent upon that when I started to drink in earnest when I was in college, in which you can control.
Yeah, I've never been to a casino. I feel no desire. You want to know what the best part of a casino is? The food. They usually sell really, really cheap but good food at casinos because the real money is made through the gambling. So if you just go there and you sit in the food areas in the restaurants and stuff, and you just like, dude, I went to a casino one time and I shit you not, I ate 20 slider burgers that day. I ate around 20 slider burgers that day. I think I spent $15. Casino food is top tier. The gambling, who the fuck cares though?
And I made it through Georgetown, and I went to Jesuit Volunteer Corps for a year, and it was kind of like domestic peace. Well, the JBC. Yeah. I was JBC for a year after college, and then I went to Yale Law School. Was married, had my oldest daughter when I was a first year law student. And made it through all of that, and made it through my first years of employment, drinking probably more than everybody than most people do, but completely functional. And one day I woke up when I was 33 years old to my brother calling me and saying, "This has got to stop. Like, you got to stop." And
It's
And what he
Bo
meant
Biden.
is that, like a whole weekend was missing kind of. And, and I said, okay. And he drove me to the airport and, he put me on a plane in New York, and I flew to a place that was started by Eric Clapton called, uh, Crossroads in Antigua. And I went to rehab and
Dude, rest in peace, Bo Biden, by the way. I think that's who he's talking about right now, his brother. That's Biden's past dead son. Like he's passed away. I think he died from something to do with his military service, but every time you hear a story about him, it's always like, man, what a nice guy. Like big rest in peace to him, because it sounds like he really cared about his brother and was a good brother. Took good care of Hunter.
came out, and I when directly when I came out, my brother picked me up from the airport, drove me to an AA meeting, walked in with me, DuPont Circle in DC. I met my sponsor at that first meeting that I ever went to, and I stayed clean and sober for about 7 years, and then I relapsed, and it was such a mundane, stupid story. I was on a plane by myself. Everything was okay. Things were looking up. It was, normal life pressures, but it was all good. And that's the real insidious thing about addiction and alcoholism. It never goes away necessarily. There's always the answer that is being presented to you by the thing that you trust the most, which is your brain.
Mm.
And what it says is, if you don't want to feel this way, whatever the way is, or if you want to feel this way even more, I have the answer for you. And I was on a plane by myself, and I had a drink. And that drink in 2010, 7 years almost of sobriety, started a cycle of relapse and recovery, and relapse and recovery, in which it was really hard for me to be honest with the people that love me, because I just wanted to hide it. I just wanted it to go away. And I thought, okay, I'll get through this cycle, and I'll sleep it off this weekend, and that's it. I'm done. And that would last a week, and then it would last 3 months, and then I went back to rehab, and then it became then I came back and I started, I mean, you talk about this all the time, which I love that you do. It was big pharma, you know what I mean? I had shingles, and so somebody prescribed me like 52 oxycodone, ridiculous. And I started that, and then I started.
It almost like either Hunter Biden is like genuinely just the perfect person to be doing this, or he is like unironically like he has just figured out how to come off as good on camera in this landscape. And to be fair, Hunter Biden has done a lot of like online stuff. Like he has done a lot of things that involve hanging out with internet influencers, being in YouTube videos, going on podcasts. He's collaborated with YouTubers in the past. So he's like kind of a cool guy. He's kind of cool for a guy his age. So it makes me wonder if he's just like tapped in enough to the internet culture and the internet landscape to know how to come onto a show like this and to look good and to sound good. Like he knows what kind of personality sounds good, because this almost feels like he almost sounds like he would sound good on Joe Rogan, bantering over whether or not a grizzly bear or a gorilla would win in a fight. And I honestly think that might be the next podcast appearance he's on. That clip might end up going viral soon.
Drinking again, and the prescription ran out, and then the cycle just started to happen. And but when my brother died, it all fell apart. Bo and I were, and like I don't purport that our relationship was unique, or that his loss was greater than my loss of him was greater than anybody else's loss of their brother or someone that they deeply, deeply loved. But when my mom and sister and my Bo and I were in that car accident in 1972, and we survived, it was the two of us every day. We're a year and a day apart. We talked every day. I mean, except when he was in Iraq, I literally probably talked to my brother every day. And when Bo died, my marriage fell apart after 20 years, 22 years. By the way, for reasons that marriages fall apart, but I take a lot of responsibility for. And it just started a really, really dark cycle. In the past, when I would have these relapses, there was always someone in such proximity to me that they would I couldn't escape. In this instance, Bo was gone. I right after Bo died, I ended up separated from my wife like within a month, and my dad, for the first time in my life, who was my rock, was stuck in his own grief, like deep grief.
Mm.
And I just went down into a hole. And I checked myself into a rehab that year and came out and stayed sober for a while and then relapsed and then went into an outpatient program in DC where I went 4 hours every day for, from 8 to 2 or 6 hours every day. Stay sober. And then I relapsed. And I came back and they said, well, you have to, I admitted to them that I relapsed. And in this instance, I also used cocaine. And they said, well, you have to take a drug test. And I said, I'm not going to take a drug test. I'm not going to put something on, it's because it's not protected by HIPAA in a rehab.
Man, I do want to listen to this more later, but it's not really it's not all that hype, you know what I mean? But it is really interesting, and clearly people are really enjoying watching this interview, because it's already pulled an insane amount of views in the 4 hours that it's been up, and the comments are overwhelmingly positive. I think this is, listen, my opinion on Candace Owens is still very in the negative, to say the least, but it almost feels as though she's become such a self-serving agent of chaos that now she is actively hurting the right, because the right is standing in the way of her and profits, if that makes sense. The path of least resistance to making money for her right now is siding with the left and actually, kind of spurning the right. And that's a pretty, I don't know, I think Candace Owens, for all of her faults, is very good at looking at where things are going culturally and politically, online and in real life. And the fact that Candace Owens is starting to pivot to the left should be a big canary in the coal mine for conservatives, that things are starting to change. And the right-wing, anti-woke cash cow is starting to run dry. We'll see, though. We'll just have to see.